Well, let's go a little further in terms of how it directly affects the people. You talked about some of the framework and infrastructure that needs to be put in place. If you could respond to, in terms of the severance packages, has that been completely sorted? Because we still hear some Labour persons saying they have outstanding with respect to severance packages.
Well, perhaps before I do that, maybe it's also important to respond to that. A call for review. You know, I think that our choices as a nation must first be experiential. We concessioned out our refineries around 2006, and there was this again agitation, and I think by some of the voices we are now hearing, no, it shouldn't have been sold, it shouldn't have been concession. The Yar'Adua administration responded to that, stopped that process. But that was in 2007. Where are we today? In 2000, that's 9 years after. Okay? And so, we still don't have the quality of refineries. Now, Ministry of Petroleum just shared with us the hard work they're doing, getting the refineries back on after about 7 years. So, perhaps, and as you're aware, Dangote is now building a refinery. Perhaps, if we had allowed that process, and I think Dangote was one of the concessionaires at the time. So, call for review, fine, we can start reviewing and nothing will happen. In lieu of review, I think we should focus on getting what is on ground to work. And that is what I'm doing. That's what I've told you about what we're doing about all the various power plants. Now, in terms of severance pay, the records we met was that about 50,000 people were due severance pay. About 47,000 had been paid. Now, for me, that's at about 90-something percent compliance. That is clear evidence of an intention and good faith to pay. There were pensioners also, I think about 5,000. And I think about 3,000 had been paid, well over 50%. When I queried the reasons for delay, they told me that there was a verification process going on and that the approvals they had to spend money for that process had expired. I gave a new approval. Why were you verifying? Didn't you know? They said, well, the allegation they made to me from the office was that, look, when the payment started, people were altering records, issuing employment letters at severance point and backdating them to people who were not members of staff. And that is what has delayed this process. So the money to pay them, I asked, the money is there, but they were not going to pay unless they were sure that those who got payment were entitled. So that process is going on. It has to be properly done, and when it is completed, certainly we will pay. Those are the issues. And so when people get perhaps angry or agitated, it is to do so in a context. Some people have been paid. So this is not an unwillingness to pay. It is an insistence on process before payment is made.
Okay. If we stayed on this, I think we have a whole lot to talk concerning power, and some Nigerians are also asking some key questions about other sectors under your ministry, which is works and housing. But to start with, quite recently, some of us have gone around, some areas going by road and seeing what has been left undone. At the start, there was a time you spoke and you said some of the contractors left site when people came on board, but you've been able to mobilize some of them. Now let's look at the roads. It's really unfortunate that some beautiful mines in the country have been lost through bad roads in the country. What's the state of some of these roads as it stands?
Well, again, from the briefing that we got, about 206 roads have been awarded. The cost to complete them is about 2-point-something trillion. And so our strategy is simply focus on trying to complete those roads. Now, some of the things that have been done in the past was to take the whole capital budget, how many roads are there, make sure we give every road something. For me, that's not the way to go. And so the strategy I recommend is let's take the roads that carry the heaviest traffic and face them, phase one, this year. Let's finish them or push them to near completion. Next year, phase two. Third year, phase three. And in each phase, let us ensure that at least every geopolitical zone of the country gets something in each phase. But there are some that are more compelling than others. And my classic case is the Ilorin-Jeba road. That road is a lifeline for agric, for a lot of supplies between north and south. Now, as far as the state of the roads go, I started a tour, and I started from the north central. I visited all the 6 states, inspecting power formation, road formation, and civil works formation, that projects that we were doing there. And I saw our people literally trying to salvage their vegetable products that had perished because they had been stuck there for 4 days. I saw endless queues of trucks carrying all sorts of things, construction material, pipes, petrol, stuck there for days. The only way I could go was to pass through a bush path, through an elevated detour. None of those articulated trucks, the trailers and tankers could do it. Those who tried just tipped over. And people slept there for 4 days. It's a 98-kilometer road. It was awarded, the contractor wasn't paid for a year and a half. When they paid him the 15%, they paid him only half of his 15%. That was a contractor I appealed to please go back to site. Now he stabilized the road significantly, but he has to put the concrete deck on it. Now we haven't been able to provide the money for him to do that. The rains are coming. I don't want that road to deteriorate again back to the condition that it was. But so these are omissions and errors from the past that we are dealing with. And it is important to emphasize this because people think that you're complaining about the past. No, you cannot assess me without a context of where we started from. Now, this was a 12 billion naira road. That was the entire contract sum of 14 billion. Now, what did we do with money at that time? If we had paid this contractor, we would have finished that road. But for the whole of the country, we chose then, the last administration budgeted only 18 billion naira for roads. When one road alone cost about 14 billion naira. So our strategy this year is to focus on those kind of roads that carry the heaviest number of vehicles, that carry critical services that other departments rely on to survive.
So
the economy. Agric, for example, needs that road.
Yeah. Talking about that road and other roads, are you hoping to fund the roads alone strictly from the budget?
Essentially, we can do most of those roads because we propose a budget of 433 billion to Parliament for my 3 ministries. And our plan was to use 268 billion for roads, 99 billion for power, and 66 billion for housing.
So what about the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, for instance? You're not thinking of concessioning, are you?
Well, the Lagos-Ibadan road concession, as you know, is now the subject of a court case. Injunctions had been obtained to stop the arrangement put in by the last administration to finance the road through private sector. And an injunction was granted by a court in Nigeria saying that nobody should raise money or finance the development of the road. Thankfully, there is no injunction against government building its road yet, and I hope there will be none.
So government is hoping to finance that road?
Yes, it's part of what we put in the budget for this year. But I got a message last night from one of the lawyers suggesting to me that the action has been dismissed, but I haven't seen the judgment. He says he'll get it to me. This was late last night. So these are some of the problems that we inherited: fighting, getting court orders to stop development.
You know, trust that the contractors must also get from government is very key here. You know, when you have this back and forth.
I agree with you. Let me butt in here. I agree with you. You see, at the end of the day, whenever it is a contract, the main remedy, not the only remedy, the main remedy that the law recognizes, and I'm a lawyer, is damages for breach of contract. And I think that claims can be formulated, orders can be given with a broader perspective that, look, what really would you lose? Is the Nigerian government unable to pay damages, assuming it was found to be in breach? Why should the developmental process of Nigeria and the lives of Nigerians be held in abeyance because you are in court?
Just wondering though, it also brings to question, the role of FEMA. You've talked about how this contractor was called in. You appealed to the contractor to stabilize the road so that it could be motorable. But it also raises questions as to what goes on when a contract has been awarded and a road is in a really terrible state of disrepair. What happens in the meantime? Is the government thinking in that direction of answering those questions for Nigerians?
I have always asked myself that question. I'm asking myself that question. We need to first strengthen FEMA. There is a bill that I met seeking to reform the road sector. Let's put it that way. And the inputs that I've made to it, hopefully, will go back to Parliament. Parliament was graceful enough to send it to me for my input because they had started considering it before I came in. I've made those inputs now. We're planning to go back to them. Essentially, is to strengthen our road maintenance capacity. Essentially, also, is to put sustainability into financing and maintaining roads, as people have done all over the world. And it is also to stop being pretentious that roads can be had for absolutely free everywhere. There will be toll roads if we want to get out of this situation. There will be, as on a best endeavor basis, there will be alternative routes as well, and people can choose. And there must be a continuous way of ensuring that roads are maintained before they deteriorate.
All right, we have to go. But if you could kindly make your response to this last question very short. Local contractors, are you involving them, and to what extent?
I want to see local contractors more, and that's part of the diversification. That's part of keeping the energy and the economy and the opportunities at home. But as I said, I can't change the contractors on ongoing projects that I met simply because I want to take on more local contractors. It doesn't give me the speed of the service that I need to deliver to make the roads more efficient in the short term. But in the long term, clearly, that's the way to go. But local contractors also have to develop the capacity. And there's a lot of reform that needs to take place. Equipment leasings. Not all contractors can buy equipment, but they can lease equipment, because there are things that just can't be done in the traditional way. Otherwise, we'll have very suboptimal deliveries.
All right, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, SAN, Minister of Power, Works and Housing, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I wish you all the best.
I wish you the best.